Hello, dear students. Today I intend to discuss the second unit of the story, 3 questions, written by the famous Russian storyteller Leo Tolstoy. As you know, a certain king was worried about getting correct answers to his 3 questions. Number 1, what is the right time to begin any work? Number 2, who are important for him and who are to be given more importance, more focus than the others, and what is right work, right profession for him. Now, several wise men of the kingdom tried to give answers to the king's questions, but all the answers being different, the king was not satisfied, and he got to know that a certain wise man, a certain hermit who was living in a dense forest at the outskirts of his kingdom probably knew the answers to his questions. But the problem was that hermit never came out of his cottage, of his hermitage, nor did he ever entertain any high-fi people to his place. Now, we have discussed up to this the first unit. Let us see what did the king do to get answers from that wise hermit. Did he invite the hermit to his palace using his royal power, or did he himself visit the hermit's cottage for the sake of getting correct answers? In the second unit, let us discuss it and find out the right answers. Okay. Now, the king was wise and he was very humble, very gentle, very polite. Instead of inviting the hermit to his palace, he decided to visit the cottage of the hermit. How? Instead of putting on his royal attire, royal dress, instead of being well armed, sitting on a horseback, he called on the hermit in a simple plain dress, discarding his soldiers, his bodyguards at the outside of the forest, and divesting his royal dress, and he proceeded towards the cottage of the hermit, crossing the thick, the dense wild forest. Now, when the king reached the cottage of the hermit, what did he notice? He saw the hermit was digging the soil to plant saplings of flower plants. Now, from a distance, the king saw the hermit was quite emaciated, quite weak, quite lean and thin, and when he was hitting the ground with the help of the spade, digging the soil, he was gasping, he was feeling breathless, and seeing this, the king proceeded up to him and in a very polite way said, "Sir, I have come to you with the intention of getting answers to my 3 questions. As usual, he repeated the 3 questions. Number 1, what is the right time to begin any work? Number 2, right people or important people for him, and number 3, the right profession or the right work for him." Now, the hermit, after welcoming the king, continued digging the soil without answering the questions, trying to answer the questions, and as he was feeling breathless, the king offered to help him. He requested the hermit to give him the spade so that he would help him to dig the soil. The hermit was preparing flower beds. Okay. Now, quite happily thanking the king, the hermit handed over the spade to the king. The king continued digging the soil for 2 flower plants, and when 2 flower beds were ready, the king, looking at the hermit, said, "Sir, please give me my answers, and if you have no answer to my questions, please let me know so that I would go away." Now, you see, the hermit did not answer. He tried to take the spade from king's hand to dig the soil himself, but the king took pity on the hermit. He was quite sympathetic. He could understand the physical condition of the hermit, and instead of handing over the spade to the hermit, the king went on digging the soil, preparing the beds for the flower plants, and in the meanwhile hours rolled on, and finally the time for the sunset came. And when the sun was going to set in the western offing, the king finally said, "Sir, please answer me, otherwise I would go away." Now, instead of answering the king's queries, the hermit said, "Look up there, somebody is running towards us." And you see, at that time, the king looked to the farthest end of the garden, and he saw a bearded person, a stranger, pressing both his hands on his stomach, was running towards them. ଯେତେବେଳେ ସନ୍ଧ୍ୟା ଆଗତ ହେଇଛି, ରାଜା ପରିଶେଷରେ ସନ୍ନ୍ୟାସୀଙ୍କୁ ପଚାରୁଛନ୍ତି, "ମହାଭାଗ, ଯଦି ଆପଣ ମୋ ପ୍ରଶ୍ନର ଉତ୍ତର ନ ଦେଇପାରିବେ ମୋତେ କହିଦିଅନ୍ତୁ, ମୁଁ ପ୍ରତ୍ୟାବର୍ତ୍ତନ କରିବି." ରାଜାଙ୍କର ପ୍ରଶ୍ନର ଉତ୍ତର ନ ଦେଇ ସାଧୁ ଜଣକ କ'ଣ କହିଲେ, "ଦେଖ, କେହି ଜଣେ ଆମ ଆଡ଼ିକି ଧାଇଁ ଧାଇଁକି ଆସୁଛି." ରାଜା ଦେଖିଲେ ଜଣେ ଶ୍ମଶ୍ରୁଧାରୀ, ଦାଢ଼ି ରଖିଥିବା ଜଣେ ଲୋକ ପେଟକୁ ଚାପି ଧରି, 2 ହାତରେ ଚାପି ଧରି ସେମାନଙ୍କ ଆଡ଼କୁ ଆସୁଛି, and he was bleeding profusely because of a deep wound on his belly, and although he was pressing his belly using his both palms, still then blood was coming out. And when he came to the king and the presence of the hermit, his condition was quite serious. The king and the hermit started taking care of this wounded person. The king used his handkerchief and used the towel of the hermit, tried to bandage the wounded spot, tried to stop the bleeding of blood, oozing of blood, but it did not stop suddenly. Again and again, the king washed the towel, washed the handkerchief, and tried to use it as a bandage to the wounded spot. After some time, the oozing of blood, the running of blood stopped, and the wounded person demanded a little water to drink. The king entered into the cottage of the hermit, fetched cold water, offered to the wounded person, and when the wounded person took sips of water, he lost his consciousness. And as you know, it was already sunset, The king and the hermit carried the wounded person to the cottage and they let the wounded person sleep on the bedsheet of the hermit. Because the king had come to the cottage of the hermit on foot, and because he had dug several pits for the flower plants, he was quite exhausted, he was feeling drowsy, and instead of sleeping on a regular bed, leaning against the threshold of the cottage door, the king fell fast asleep. ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ରାଜା ଯିଏକି କେବେ ଏତେ କଠିନ ପରିଶ୍ରମ କରନ୍ତି ନାହିଁ, ପାଦରେ ଚାଲନ୍ତି ନାହିଁ, ଜଙ୍ଗଲ ପାଦରେ ଅତିକ୍ରମ କରିଥିବାରୁ ଏବଂ କଣ୍ଟିନ୍ୟୁଅସ୍ ଫୁଲ ଗଛ ଲଗାଇବା ପାଇଁ ଯେଉଁ ଖାତ ଖୋଳିଥିବାରୁ ସେ ପୁରା ହାଲିଆ ହୋଇଥିଲେ। ତେଣୁ ସନ୍ନ୍ୟାସୀଙ୍କର ସେହି କୁଡ଼ିଆର ଦ୍ୱାରବନ୍ଧକୁ ଆଉଜି ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ରାଜା ପୁରା ଗଭୀର ନିଦ୍ରାରେ ଶୋଇପଡ଼ିଛନ୍ତି। ଆଣ୍ଡ ନେକ୍ସଟ ମର୍ଣ୍ଣିଂ when the king woke up, he found the wounded stranger was looking at him quite pityingly. He was feeling guilty as if he had done a great blunder to the king. And when the king looked at him, it was early in the morning. The wounded person begged apology. Sir, please excuse me, please forgive me. The king replied, I don't know you. You have done nothing wrong to me, and there is no question of forgiving you. Tell me what made you beg pardon, beg mercy. ତେଣୁ ଯେତେବେଳେ ରାଜା ଉଠି ପଡ଼ିଛନ୍ତି ଭୋରୁ, ସେ ଯେଉଁ ଅଚିହ୍ନା ଲୋକ, ଅଜ୍ଞାତ ଲୋକ ଯିଏକି ଉଠି ପଡ଼ିଛନ୍ତି, ଖଟ ଉପରେ ବସିଛନ୍ତି, ସେ ରାଜାଙ୍କୁ ଅନେଇକି ଅତି କାକୁତି ମିନତି ହେଇ କହୁଛନ୍ତି, ମହାଭାଗ ମୋତେ କ୍ଷମା କରିଦିଅନ୍ତୁ। ତେଣୁ ଏଠି ରାଜା କହୁଛନ୍ତି, ମୁଁ ତ ତୁମକୁ ଜାଣିନି, ତୁମେ ମୋ ପାଖରେ କି ଅପରାଧ କରିଛ କୁହ, ଯାହା ପାଇଁ ମୋ ପାଖରେ କ୍ଷମା ପ୍ରାର୍ଥନା କରୁଛ। Now you see, the king was not aware of this fact, but according to the stranger, according to the wounded person, he was the deadliest enemy of the king. He wanted to murder the king, to take the life of this king. Why? Because this king had executed his brother, had confiscated his brother's property, and to take revenge upon this king, who, according to this stranger, had done wrong to the family of his brother, he wanted to kill the king. ତେଣୁ ସେ ଯେଉଁ ଅଜ୍ଞାତ ଲୋକ କହିଲା, ମହାରାଜ ଆପଣ ମୋର ହେଉଛନ୍ତି ପରମ ଶତ୍ରୁ, ଆପଣ ମୋ ଭାଇକୁ ମୃତ୍ୟୁଦଣ୍ଡ ଦେଇଛନ୍ତି, ଆପଣ ମୋ ଭାଇର ସମ୍ପତ୍ତିକି ବାଜ୍ୟାପ୍ତି କରି ନେଇଛନ୍ତି ଏବଂ ପ୍ରତିଶୋଧ ନେବା ପାଇଁ ମୁଁ ବଦ୍ଧପରିକର ଥିଲି। And getting to know that you had come to meet the hermit, I was in the forest, I was ambushed, hiding behind a bush, waiting for your return journey. And when you did not come before sunset, I was deeply worried, and therefore to find out what made you to come back so late, I came out of the ambush, and your bodyguard, they caught sight of me, they recognized me, and they attacked me. Now I wanted to take your life. Now you see, because of this turn of events, you saved my life. ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆପଣଙ୍କର ଫେରିବାଟା ଡେରି ହେଲା, ସେତେବେଳେ କ'ଣ ହେଇଛି, ମୁଁ ବ୍ୟସ୍ତ ହେଇକି ଯେତେବେଳେ ବୁଦା ପଛପଟରୁ ଛପିଥିବା ଜାଗାରୁ ବାହାରକୁ ଆସିଛି, ସେତେବେଳେ ଆପଣଙ୍କର ଯେଉଁ ବଡ଼ିଗାର୍ଡ଼ ସିକ୍ୟୁରିଟି ମାନେ ମୋତେ ଚିହ୍ନି ପାରିଲେ, ଆଉ ସେମାନେ ମୋତେ ଆଟାକ୍ କଲେ। ମୁଁ ଆପଣଙ୍କ ଜୀବନ ନେବା ପାଇଁ ପ୍ରସ୍ତୁତ ଥିଲି, କିନ୍ତୁ ଆପଣ ମୋର ଜୀବନକୁ ରକ୍ଷା କଲେ। ନାଓ ଆଇ ପ୍ରୋମିସ୍, ଇଫ୍ ୟୁ ଆଲାଉ ମି ଟୁ ଲିଭ୍, if you give me a chance to live, I will serve you as your most loyal servant, and I would also tell my children to serve you lifelong quite faithfully. The king was surprised, he became quite happy, and within few seconds of service, selfless service, his deadliest enemy, deadliest foe has now turned to his best friend, faithful friend. Now the king promised that apart from returning the assets, the property of his brother, he would send his doctor to treat him, and he would also try to solve all the problems in his life. ତେଣୁ ରାଜା କହୁଛନ୍ତି ଆଉ ମୁଁ ତୁମକୁ ଚିକିତ୍ସା କରିବା ପାଇଁ ମୋର ଡାକ୍ତର ପଠାଇବି, ଆଉ ତୁମର ଯେଉଁ ଭାଇର ସମ୍ପତ୍ତି ମୁଁ ଯେଉଁଟାକି ବାଜ୍ୟାପ୍ତି କରି ନେଇଛି, କନଫିସ୍କେଟ୍ କରି ନେଇଛି, ତାକୁ ମଧ୍ୟ ମୁଁ ରିଟର୍ଣ୍ଣ କରିଦେବି। ଆଉ ଲେଟ୍ ଅସ୍ ଫରଗେଟ୍ ଅଲ୍ ଆୱାର past animosity, past hatred, past enmity, and we have to live together quite happily, quite peacefully. Now, the king promised to return back, restore the loss of his brother's property, return back his brother's property, and also promised him no further punishment. Now, this is the end of the second unit. Sometimes we hesitate to serve people, to help people, because we do not know them. And here in the case of the king, you see, we are laymen, we are ordinary people, but we do not come forward to serve our fellow brethren, our fellow men, but a king, without any grudge, without any grumble, without any hesitation, try to serve a stranger, unknown person. Although later on it turned out to be his greatest enemy. आमे साधारण लोक आम जड़े ज्ञाति कुटुंब किंबा आमर जड़े सांगसाथी माने अचिना लोक को आम स्तर लोक को साहाय्य करने पश्चातपद होती, किंतु जड़े राज्यर राजा जे कि जड़े अज्ञात लोकर सेवा करी आ तार फलस्वरूप तांको भितर जो शत्रुता थिला सेटा समाप्त हो जाइछि। नाउ अप टू दिस पॉइंट the king is not given any answer to his three questions. Let us wait, let us see whether the king was given any answers to his queries, to his three questions. Thank you all for watching this video, and if you like, if you appreciate, may subscribe to my channel DM Classes. Thank you all.